I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than
Everybody
you.
has time. Stop watching Lost.
I love what I do, and that's why I'm doing what I love.
Hey guys, welcome to the Student Side Hustle. This week I'm speaking to Jeff Alberts. Jeff is a coach from 3DMJ. 3DMJ is basically a bodybuilding and powerlifting sort of coaching service, and basically if you know anything about natural bodybuilding, you'll probably know 3DMJ. They're they've been around for a long time doing amazing work, and Jeff is the founder. He's been with it the whole time, and basically Jeff is a lifetime drug-free natural bodybuilder, and if you know anything about natural bodybuilding, you'll probably know Jeff. So Jeff, how did you get into this? How did this all start?
Oh man, so I always refer back to 1886. That's an inside joke, but yeah, 1986 is when I first picked up a weight in middle school. Right. And yeah, it just was, I was pretty strong. I was like one of the stronger kids in the class, so I kind of liked that. Oh, cool, I'm strong. Everybody's kind of like looking at that like, whoa, that guy's pretty strong. So I just kind of gravitated to it. And basically, my home life at the time was kind of not the greatest. I lived with my mom and my stepfather, and it was kind of like an outlet, lifting weights. So I was basically lifting that old plastic weight set in my room, kind of getting away from life a little bit and just gravitated to it. And, seeing the progress early on through high school. I was lifting throughout high school, and I made a lot of progress as a teenager with no education back then. There was no not that I was aware of anyway. Yeah. So science of bodybuilding is hey, let's pick up Arnold's encyclopedia book and let's look at that, and let's look at the magazines. Yeah. And yeah, I just basically was just lifting and fell in love with it and never looked back. I don't think I've had maybe a stretch of more than 6 months where I haven't lifted. So it's been pretty consistent for the last 33 years.
Yeah. Do you feel like it just sort of came naturally? Because I know, for me, the moment I started lifting, I was like, damn, this is fun. The results are sick. I could do this for a long time. For you, was it sort of the moment you started, you're like, oh, I really like this. And then did it sort of naturally turn into bodybuilding, or it sort of, you knew early on that you're like, hey, I want to do bodybuilding?
No, I knew early on. I immediately fell in love with the way lifting felt, getting the pumps, lifting heavy things like that. I gravitated towards. I didn't gravitate towards the aesthetic side as far as bodybuilding is concerned, getting on a stage, not till maybe 7 years later, in '93. And that was through the encouragement of my ex-wife. She's like, you can do that. I'm like, hey, no way am I getting in my underwear up there. No way. It ain't happening. Because I was pretty reserved, pretty shy kid. And still to this day, I'm still more reserved and quiet. But for some reason, when I get on a bodybuilding stage, it's more comfortable for me to get on a bodybuilding stage in front of, let's say, 500 people in Speedos and pose than it is to get on a dance floor and dance. I have no clue why. That's just kind of how I am, just kind of reserved and shy. Yeah. So getting on stage is kind of in my element.
Well, I think it's almost similar in a way to dancing, in some aspects. But is there certain aspects of bodybuilding that you're sort of can you see yourself just never getting tired of? Because for me, I was at a party a while ago, and I was talking about okay, I want to somehow make my career into something to do with lifting, something to do with this. And someone brought up the point of saying, what if you just do too much of it? You do it 24/7, do nothing else. Will you burn out? Will you get sick of it? Do you think that will ever be an issue for you, or do you think it's an issue for many people?
That's a really good question. I think now, that I'm older and I've been doing it forever, and I'm a coach now for the last 8 or 9 years. Bodybuilding kind of is 24/7, but I kind of realize and learn to wear different hats. Meaning, okay, I need to have a coach's hat. I need to have an athlete/bodybuilder hat. I also need to be a dad and a husband, so I need to shut bodybuilding off at certain points. So I've learned to shut it off when I need to. But early on, I would say probably in the first, 15, 20 years of it, I was more of, the horror story you hear of, other people where they become obsessed. And they're thinking about it 24/7. I remember working on the auto plant, and I would think about my workout the entire shift. Like I was going through like mentally, like it's great to like, have vision, like, okay, I need to make sure I'm hitting this number or whatever. That's great. It's a great tool. But when you're obsessing doing it for like 8 hours, 9 hours before you actually lift constantly, it's a little obsessive. But I would do that. Like I was so like eager and energetic about training and improving and progressing that I was just like over the top obsessed with it.
Do you think that led to your success?
That leads to burnout. Right. Because when I got into competitions, I would you could multiply that obsession times 5. So it's like, and now I'm dieting, I'm doing all these things. Like it became 24/7 constant. And I would go through the whole entire process of off season, compete. When the shows were over, I was done, like physically, mentally, emotionally, just taxed. Yeah. And I would always say after every competition, after every season, I should say rather, I'm going to retire. Right. My ex-wife would be like, oh gosh, how many times have I heard this before? Because I would go through these cycles where I'd burn myself out, get re-energized, come back like 6 months later and do it all over again. And I was kind of doing this a lot up and down. So now, like I said, now that I'm older and I've been competing for a long time, I know how to kind of balance these things out and not have these big swings in emotions. So but I think that's important. Like if you're getting started in bodybuilding, I think it's important to have like a healthy approach to it, a more balanced approach. I'm not saying you got to be soft, like okay, don't train hard, that type of thing. Yeah. But channeling your energy and your emotions a little bit better. Like don't get too high, don't get too low, keep it even keeled. Right. And that way you have more. I guess your energy is just more stabilized through the years.
What about like when it comes to the mental sort of aspect of it? I found for myself, like I started out at like 54 kilos. I was like 6 foot. So it's like very, very small kid. I weigh like 71 now, hoping to go to like 80. And then I found like the whole time, there's still always that mental aspect of, I still feel small. And I think for me, it's more, I don't know if I'll have to get a certain amount of size for me to be like, okay, I'm fine with that now. Cool, whatever. Or if it'll just be like, okay, I just have to mentally get over it sort of thing. Do you feel like for yourself, has there been that sort of feeling? Or do you think since it came naturally to you, you were sort of like, oh no, I feel fine like mentally? Or was it just sort of like the challenge that made you so obsessed with it? Or what was the thing that made you so obsessed with it? And do you think your mental health was impaired at certain points?
I think basically kind of like you. I mean, I was like in my mind, I wasn't big enough, always trying to get bigger. I mean, that's bodybuilding, right? We all try to get bigger. That's the name of the game, right? Yeah. So I just had this arbitrary number in my head, 200 pounds, which I think is what, 90 kilos or whatever it is. So I had this in my head, I got to get to 200. Yeah. So it was just like, okay, I need to get in there and lift heavy as I can, train hard, eat a lot, and just train. And that's what my mentality was. But I think just the obsession came from wanting to progress. Right. I just wanted to get better. Yeah. I wanted to get bigger and I wanted to get stronger. And it really, like I said, my first 7 years, it wasn't about getting on stage. I could have cared less in those first few years. It was just more about, I think through high school, it was more like, oh, I want to bench press 300 pounds. Right, yeah. So I was just like, oh, I want to, that was like a big goal. And when that happened, I'm like, okay, now I want to do 325. Like it never stopped. It never was like on to the next. Yeah. And it becomes excessive. And it's always 20/20 in hindsight, because now that I'm older, I mean, these things and like these emotions and all that, I know how to balance them out. So now it's like if I attain something that like was pretty awesome or something, win a show or have a good placing or whatever, I know how to stop and smell the roses now and appreciate what I've accomplished, because as you progress through the years in bodybuilding, those goals that you're shooting for, they don't come as frequent. Right. For most people, they like start to distance themselves. So it's, in my opinion, it's important to like, okay, let me stop for a minute here and enjoy what I just accomplished, and then have goals, and then keep pushing. Do you think it could be beneficial to have sort of micro goals? There's always going to be progression, hopefully, in the gym. Like you'll add a rep or add some weight or increase your form or
all that sort of stuff. Do you feel like that can sort of make up for it in a way, or sort of balance out the whole? Since I guess you're like, it's almost a different game as a natural. You have to play the long game. You can't get in at 21 and be a pro sort of thing. Like, it's pretty hard. Like, do you think?
I mean, it happens for some, but I mean, it's more of a rarity than it is the norm. I think it's important to have smaller goals. I mean, that keeps you going and energized. But I think also, like, what I've learned, I don't know if someone else can relate to this, that's maybe half my age, but really appreciating, the love of what you're doing, like the actual love of actually moving weight, regardless if it's PRs or if it's more weight than last session, but just the fact that you're actually in there doing that and you're doing what you love to do. Like, for me at this point, that reigns supreme. Then, hey, I added one more rep than last session.
Right.
Like, that's cool. Like, I still chase that, don't get me wrong. But it's that love that really kind of keeps me going. And I think as long as that love is there, I don't think I'll stop.
Yeah. Is it sort of like a gratefulness that you're able to do it? Because for me, I have scoliosis like Brad, but I had an operation. So it's like, for me, it's like, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do this. So it's like, for me, I have extreme feelings of like, wow, I can actually lift weights. I can be extremely healthy. And that sort of, like, it makes me so grateful to just be able to get in there and actually do it. And then, like, the knowledge that I get from you guys, it just makes it even better, because it's like, then I can do it safely. And I can do it, like, it's honestly, like, it just blows my mind, like, how much of an effect it can have on your life, mentally, physically, and just, like, how much it can change your outlook. Because it's then, I feel like, with lifting weights, you can see the changes, and you can feel the changes, and you can see them in reps and weights and all that. And then it's like, you can carry that over to the rest of your life. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you step back and look at it from a bigger perspective or a bigger picture, like you said, it's like, you're grateful that you could even train. Like, some people are they get all emotional upset if they miss a PR or, they didn't lift as heavy as they did last session. They get all freaked out, but it's just, they don't see the bigger picture. They're just caught up in that moment and in that progress. And the thing is too, if as a natural lifter, you're not going to see like progression almost every workout or every week. Sometimes it comes maybe once a month or once every, in my case, hopefully I can lift heavier than I did 6 months ago, so you have to look at it from other perspectives besides just, hey, I need to get in there and progress. Like, of course, that is always the goal. I mean, that should be the priority, but you have to learn to appreciate, the other victories that are with training, like, improving form and little things like that. That's something that I do all the time. Like, okay, I'll record my sets and I'll go, okay, let me see how that looked. And I'll compare it with what I did last week. And I'm like, oh shit, that's a little uglier than it was last week. Let me clean that up. Yeah.
And then sort of evaluating that way, not just trying to let form die a little bit just to get that PR or whatever, and just letting the ego sort of set in. Yeah, one of my favorite books is Ego is the Enemy, and it's sort of, I think it applies very much to lifting. It's sort of like, if you let your ego come with you in the gym, then that's just going to cause havoc, because injuries, you're not going to really progress. You'll feel like you're progressing, but it won't be real progression. And sort of.
Yeah, the main thing for progress too, like for sustained progress, like the number one killer for that is injury. Not so much, hey, this is bad programming or whatever. It's more so like you're injured, you can't train. And I think for me personally, like form and technique, it's kind of like number one priority, because I see that as kind of like my insurance for longevity. So I can care less if let's say I'm stuck on the same weight for like 6 months, but if it's clean form and I'm still able to lift it and move it, it's not like my body's not going to feel the effects of that.
Right. Yeah.
Like you could still, it's like a curl. Like I've been curling like 100-pound for barbell curls. I've been curling anywhere in the neighborhood of like 95 to 115 pounds for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But yet my arms have grown over that time span.
Right. Yeah. So it's like you've got to take the small wins and sort of realize, like, it's not, even if the weights aren't changing. Like I noticed in my incline press, I was pressing like 24s. Recently up to like 28s, which like isn't a huge difference, but it's decent. Like it's still a gain in weight. And one thing that I'd noticed is that was like a 6 month progression, and I'm recently new to lifting, like kind of like 3 years, and like that I noticed I would video myself, my form was just better and better and better, and it's like I feel like that sort of made me realize like, damn, my form is the real improvement here, not the weight. Like,
well, you're becoming more efficient too. So like if your form's improved, then you're relying less on leverages, like changing your leverage or momentum to move the weight. So in a sense, your volume is probably, even though the weight, let's say it's the same, your volume is probably a little better because you have better range of motion. It's cleaner. Yeah. So those little things like that, I think, like, you can't quantify that kind of stuff in, let's say, a spreadsheet.
Right.
You could quantify it though by watching video, like watching yourself do the curls.
Yeah. What about like when you mention leverage? By leverage, this is just me being confused. When you say leverage, do you mean for
like
example,
body English? English,
okay.
you're leaning way back in a curl.
Also, when you say because
or swinging the weight.
Like when you say body English, that is almost a foreign term to me. But I think I've heard you guys use it, like on your podcast or something. So I think that's the only way I know that term. And body
like
English,
that.
Basically,
the way
momentum,
I know that term is
momentum.
Yeah, like billiards, playing pool. Like they'll talk about putting English on the ball. Like they hit the ball a certain way and it spins it in a certain direction.
Right.
So when it hits the other ball, it like spins back a different way. So it sets up the cue ball. Like, it's just, I'm not a billiards player, but I know some of the terminology.
Right. So that's like
yeah.
Did you make up the term body English, or is this just like?
No, that's been around. No. Yeah. I don't know where it originated from.
It's just like a thing.
But yeah, people use that term. Yeah.
One thing that I'd really like to cover is what's your opinion on, because I think it's very relevant to myself, because that's sort of how I think I can ask the best questions, and also it gives me great advice from like bodybuilding gods. But what would your advice be behind over stalling, and then versus like waiting until you're ready when it comes to your first competition? Because I know, like for the likes of like Alberto, he's doing a 5-year bulk, or like it'll probably end up somewhere around there. And it's like, for most people, they see that and they're like, what that's insane. And then like for a lot of natural bodybuilders, it's sort of, you don't want to step on stage with too little tissue. Like you want to be within a decent range, and you want to look relatively good. Like you don't want to step on stage small. Where do you think is the boundary between stalling and just thinking, I'm not big enough, and actually getting on stage too small? That sort of.
I get that question a lot because I do work with a lot of athletes, and you have that camp that's like, okay, I'm not big enough, I'm gonna wait. I'll wait another year. And like they're waiting like 10 years, 15 years, like they're never getting on stage.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to take that type of personality and say, you know what, you just got to commit, you got to do it. Regardless, let's say, regardless if you're big enough or not,
right?
It's going to be a great learning experience. Like you go through a contest prep, you're going to learn about the sport itself, of how to prepare for it. You're going to get the experience of competing. You're going to meet new people at the show. Like it's all positive in my opinion. Like you're going to gain a lot of experience. If you're not big enough, well, a big deal. Okay, now you know, because you competed. Now you know what you need to do moving forward. And then there's the other camp. Like maybe you just are too small. Then I would say it's that person. You know, okay, let's wait. You know, a year, 2 years. And I don't like to put like if I talk to you for the first time, like I don't know if I'm big enough. I'm not gonna say, hey, let's wait 5 years or let's wait 3. I'll say, you know what? Let's get you situated. Let's set you up. Let's run this the next 6 months to a year, and let's evaluate at that point. Like, because things can change. Like I've seen people where, you know, they think they can't get big, then all of a sudden a year later they're jacked.
Yeah.
Because they're doing things properly.
Yeah.
Where I've seen other people, they're like, you know, they're hard gainers. Like a year later, you're just like, nope, you need another year.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to have a crystal ball and tell a person, hey, in 3 years you're going to be on stage, or 5 years. Alberto's case, I mean, the guy's been training for close to 20 years now. Yeah. He knows himself extremely well, and if he doesn't, then I mean, shame on him. But obviously, he's one of the better natural bodybuilders out there. So when he says 5 years, I mean, he's given himself time to actually make a substantial change. Because I can guarantee you, if he decided to compete in a year, or maybe even 2 years, he's going to look more or less kind of the same.
Yeah.
just because he has so much training age under his belt.
Do you feel like you get to a point where you need that much time off to make a difference in your physique? I know AJ Morris is taking 2 years off or something. He's waiting until 2020, and he's basically saying, I don't want to get back on stage because I don't want to get back on stage until I've made significant improvements. But do you feel like it's different for the person first stepping on stage, because it's like, hey, if you step on stage for the first time, no one's got any expectations. It's just like you need to learn from that?
That's exactly. It should be. I mean, you should be like competitive. Okay, I want to do my best and try to win. Of course, like that's always a goal.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, you're gonna gain so much experience from that.
Yeah.
And if you go through that experience that first time, just think what the next prep would do.
Yeah.
Like you're all those insecurities, anxieties, and everything that kind of went wrong in the first one. That's all going to be rectified in the second one. You're going to become that much more seasoned. So especially if let's say you're not prepping with a coach for the first time, chances are maybe you're not doing things correctly. Maybe you're losing a lot of muscle tissue along the way. So the second time around, if you're with a coach or not with a coach, I'm pretty sure you've learned through that process to get better for the next one. So not only are you gonna like go have a nice off season, you're gonna put some muscle on, but then dieting back down for another show, you might be able to hold on to a little more muscle tissue.
Yeah.
So that is a big component to bodybuilding too, is like retaining muscle mass while you're dieting.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people can go wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, to make substantial gains, like I don't know AJ's. I know AJ, but I don't know exactly his protocol and all that. But I know he got pretty damn lean. He got shredded. He did extremely well.
Yeah.
Now think of the trauma your body does the levels of leanness. Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, there. You kind of cut out. So yeah, it just puts on a lot of it's a lot of stress to go through that.
Yeah.
And to try to do that the following year, it's extremely tough physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it's always nice to have like at least a full year away from prep to kind of recover, get yourself healthy, have time to actually train heavy again and actually make improvements.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that he would say, "Hey, I'm going to take a couple of years off before I compete again." Even at my age, it's probably what I should have did. I tried to prep last year, didn't go too well. Probably should have just took a decent off season and came back.
Right. Yeah. What about when it comes to, because I think there's sort of two camps when it comes to bodybuilding. I think a lot of people, I think everyone's relatively in agreement for the majority of things, right? But then I think a lot of people put more emphasis on gaining strength and gaining brute strength, almost like a powerlifter, almost, definitely different, obviously. Like we're not training in 2 rep ranges. I mean, rep ranges is like 1 to 2 reps. But there's the people that just want to make strength gains, and then people focus, I notice other people sort of focus more on volume. Do you think there's one that people should focus more on, either increasing their volume over time or increasing their overall intensity? Or do you think that's even the wrong question to ask? Do you think you need both?
I was going to say, well, first, who are we talking about? A bodybuilder?
Yeah, bodybuilder, just hypertrophy specific.
I think there should be kind of like a good balance of it all. Like you don't want, like if you're just chasing volume, let's say you're doing 20-pound curls.
Yeah. And
you're doing, that you've been doing that for 5 or 6 years, 7 years. I mean, how big is your arm really going to get?
Yeah.
It's going to probably get a little bigger. But I mean, let's say you were to work your strength up to 40-pound curls in that time frame, and you're doing the same number of sets. I'd almost put my money on the 40 pound arm than the 20.
Yeah.
So I don't think it should be like categorized as like black or white, but more of like, you try to balancing it all. Like for me personally, I'm always trying to get stronger, of course, within reason, not getting injured and banged up. But my goal is always like, okay, let me see if I can get stronger over time and still accumulate like a set here, set there with the heavier loads if I can.
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge question. Like a lot of people is like, how much volume should I be doing? Like that's kind of like the hot topic right now.
Right.
And a lot of the questions I get from that's like from younger guys, and it's like, you don't even know how to lift properly yet, and you're worried about how many sets you should be doing.
Yeah. So it's sort of like they've got to, like, I think for me, my first year and a half of lifting, like, it's embarrassing now, but it's like I literally thought that I was at my genetic limit. And like, like, oh my, and now, like, I've realized how far I still have to go. Like, it's just a fucking marathon, but it's like,
well, that's a good thing to look like, because we're kind of on the opposite sides of the spectrum, right? Like you're fairly young, and I'm like fairly old. So our training age is so gapped. Like, could you imagine? Let's say, okay, how old are you right now?
I'm 19.
Oh, you're 19. You got like 30, 40 years to go. But anyways, so let's say we've got 30 years, right? Let's say you're gonna max your potential out in 30 years, right? Okay, then they say, okay, you got to increase your training volume over your career.
Right.
How much do you think you're going to be doing in 30 years?
Yeah, like, it's not going to be 17 exercises per set. I mean,
you're not going to be doing 100 sets per exercise.
It's not like it's this curve. Like, going back to one thing, because I know this is one thing that I really liked about 3DMJ, Revive Stronger, AJ Moss, all that sort of crew. I think a lot people do something. The thing that I really like that you guys do is you guys focus a lot on basically saying, or not outright saying it, but basically when you explain things, you make it clear that things are always they're never really black or white. There's a few things that are, but the majority is gray. How do you think that, do you think that there are certain things that are definitely black or white? These things are confirmed, like there's just no other way about it. And do you think, do you think basically everything is in the gray?
It's a good question. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's like black or white.
Yeah.
Sky's blue. But I mean, like the way I kind of look at bodybuilding is that it's kind of like a toolbox. And in that toolbox, you want to, have plenty of tools to work with, because you never know what kind of job you're going to be working on next.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, if you have to fix a sink and you don't have the wrench, like a plumbing wrench, you just have a crustic wrench, you're going to be in trouble. Like, the job's going to be hard to do.
Right.
That's kind of how I look at bodybuilding. Like, at any given time, within specific context I'm working in, I need to know how to use specific tools to keep progressing.
Right.
So for example, like, let's say you're injured. Let's say you got, tennis elbow. Right. And you're like, man, every time I try to curl heavy, flares up my elbow and sets me back. So it's like, okay, let me use blood flow restriction training, because it's just as effective as heavy load. So I'm going to use that to work around that type of injury. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, I remember when BFR got really hot, it was like kind of like people looked at it as a black or white. Like, everybody was doing it because they thought it was going to be superior to regular training. It wasn't looked at as like a tool to use in context. So that's kind of how I look at a lot of things in the sport. And so I think, in my opinion, it's always good to keep educating yourself, learning the tools, and not just like educate yourself like, hey, let's listen to a podcast, now I know the information, but actually applying that shit and learning it, because that's where you're going to learn the most, when you actually get in there and try things. Like, for me personally, that's how I've learned over the years. Like, I probably did a little too much trial and error, and I spent my wheels quite a bit. But I mean, it taught me a lot of valuable lessons. And now, as an older bodybuilder and coach now, I mean, I can use all that experience I've learned over the years and apply it to my athletes, so they avoid some of the same stuff I did. But
going back to like the whole black-white thing, do you think a lot of things when they come out, like blood flow restriction as an example, I actually had a question on that, because I think it's like, well, I've only seen you guys and a few other people talk about it, and it just seems really fascinating, probably useful for me, because my wrists are kind of wrecked, and also my elbows are kind of, because I think I did too much tricep volume too fast. But I've never really done it or looked into it. But I think, do you think things like blood flow restriction or intermittent fasting or all these other things, do you think they become fads and then people look at them in black and white?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. they come out, it gets presented, and then people like, oh, okay, this is the magic bullet.
Right. Yeah.
This is the thing that's going to give me the most progress.
Right.
I kind of like, for me, like the magic bullet for me early on was I got introduced to Mike Mintzer's HIIT training.
Right.
Like Dorian Yates and all that were like they're like big advocates of it. You know, here's Mr. Olympia training with HIIT. So I gravitated to that, and the guy that introduced me to that, like I trained with him for about 3 months, and I saw significant gains. But looking in hindsight, it wasn't because of the HIIT. It was because I was detrained, because I stopped training for a little bit, maybe like 6 months, and I wasn't eating very well because I was a poor college student.
Right.
So I was basically like 160 pounds, and then I met this guy. He's like, here, let's train this way, like HIIT training. And then I started pounding down the food.
So it's sort of
it wouldn't have mattered what training program I would have got on. I would have grown.
Right.
But in my mind at that time, I got brainwashed into thinking, oh, that's the holy grail. Like, that's it. It's HIIT training. So I got like kind of brainwashed.
Yeah.
And then my walls went up. Like, because I was making such gains, it reinforced my beliefs that this is it. So anytime anybody would kind of like, hey, why don't you try this or that, I would just put my walls up and say, nah, you're wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So that ego, like we talked about early on, not just in the gym, but just like in general, got in the way of me learning and getting better earlier on. And that kind of hindered me for quite some time.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you sort of got into that mindset, you were sort of thinking, because I think I got like that as well. I was sort of stuck in a certain mindset of training, and I thought, like, only power building was the only way to go, and you had to squat, bench, deadlift, and I don't. Like, I'm not built for squatting or deadlifting at all. Like, there's a few variations, like RDLs, they work great for me, and a few other things, but I was stuck in that sort of mindset. Do you think a lot of people get stuck in that sort of, this is the only training style, and do you think, how would you recommend people get out of it, or do you think it's not a problem for everyone, or?
I don't think it's a problem for everybody. I would just say be open-minded and keep learning. I'm not just from the same group. Like, I mean, 3DMJ, like, yeah, great information. But, I mean, there's other people out there, like you said, you know, Revive Stronger. Like, Steve's awesome. You know, AJ, he's been doing some great things. So there's other people you can learn from. And that's something that I've done as a coach, too. Like, whenever I feel like, hey, I can't do much else with this individual, I'll refer them out. Like, I think it's time you go somewhere else to learn elsewhere.
Right.
Whether that's with another 3DMJ coach, or maybe there's someone else out there that I see can be a good fit. Because, I mean, let's face it. I mean, not everyone knows everything out there. You know, even Eric Helms, as smart as the guy is, he doesn't know everything. So, you know, and he learns from other people as well. So, to me, you should keep an open mind and learn from a multitude of people, and those are tools. Like, you think of it, these are little tools. You're learning from all these different people, and you put it in your toolbox, and you learn how to use those within your context. And that's something that I've gotten really good at, and that's something that I try to convey. Like, on my Instagram post, I'll talk a lot about how I train, just to give people perspective of why I'm doing certain things, and try to give as much context as I can. It's not like saying, hey, you know, this 5-day split superior, you know. Like that's why I get, you know, what split's the best? I'm like,
it doesn't, like, it
doesn't matter.
You can't say, like, it's not, like, I saw a post the other day. You know how people, the, like, sort of normal fitness people they have the graphics. There was one basically saying, if you're a beginner, you must do this, intermediate, you do that and that, and it was basically full body, upper, lower, push-pull legs, and it was kind of like, it was very, very, I think a lot of
very generalized.
And it's like the program I'm currently running, it's like, it's made specifically for me and my injuries. Like, it's not made for the average lifter. And a lot of people, like, I have a few people with scoliosis who follow me, and they'll be like, oh, show you should program. And I'm like, no, because, like, it's not made, like, it would probably work, but it's like, there's a lot in it that's made specifically for me to bring up specific things.
Like, in my opinion, it's like, for me personally, like, at this stage of my career, I don't train based off of a specific training program. Like, I'll write something up, but it's a structure, but I work within the structure. So I use a lot of flexibility. Like today, I was just like, okay, I'm going to train today. I'm supposed to do upper body, but I left it at 3 exercises. I did chest and arms, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do back and shoulders tomorrow, just because my energy levels weren't where I wanted it to be for all that work. So I cut it off in half. I did the easier body parts. I'm like, I'll do chest, and that's easy. I'll do the ego workout today. Tomorrow I'll do back, because back's a little more taxing. So I'll make sure I get a good night's sleep tonight and make sure I'm well fed, and then hopefully I have a better workout tomorrow with that. I do that stuff a lot now. So in a sense, I train with principles. So I think that's what's really key. It's like there's no like quote unquote best program, but if you know the principles and you know how to train with them, I mean that's it's kind of like flexible dieting. It gives you a lot of freedom.
So it's sort of like it gives you the tools to be able to control things and be able to not
okay, if I'm
lost.
doing like a set of curls, 15 to 20 reps, I know okay, let me make sure I'm taking this close to failure. Because such a high rep range, I want to make sure I'm touching all muscle fiber types. I want to make sure I'm getting, the intensity up on that.
So so when it comes to would the majority of that sort of you have the principles, and then there's variation within the, I guess, program or system that you do, or the exercise, the workouts that you will do. Would you say the majority of that comes from exercise selection or exercise variation, or is it rep range variation, or
all of the above? All
of it.
So again, it's like learning, like so I don't want people who are like maybe inexperienced, are like, oh, I'm going to try that. So it's always like, as a coach, if I get someone who's like, let's say very new, or let's say even intermediate, it's like, okay, let me set up something that's a little more rigid that they can follow. So let's say upper lower split or a 5-day split, whatever. You set that up, and then over time, they're following it, and then you start assessing, okay, what's working well, what's not working well. Then you start tweaking things, not overhauling the whole program, but tweaking things based on the feedback you're getting from them. And while you're doing that, the person's getting better at understanding the principles behind everything, and also how they're responding, either positively or negatively. So over time, what I'm trying to do is transition this person from being so rigid in a system to now, over time, now they're in a system that's a lot more flexible. So they get the power to make those game time decisions, because that's where you're going to sustain progress over the long haul, is making adjustments like I did today. Like, okay, today, it's not the best day today. Let's not try to do all the volume today. Let's break it up in half, and then I'll do the rest tomorrow and get a better workout that way. So those type of calls. And there's also days where I feel really good. I'm going to do more. But I have ranges, like my sets, anywhere, let's say 3 to 5 sets. My rep ranges, let's say an exercise 8 to 12. Reps in reserve, okay, anywhere on this particular exercise, it's going to be 0 to 2. So I just use that type of system and gauge it by how I'm feeling.
So it's sort of like you can auto-regulate on the day. Am I feeling shit? Am I feeling good? And then you can sort of test from there. Okay. What about when it comes...
But there's boundaries, though.
So it's like you can't just say, I feel amazing today, let's do 20 sets of...
Exactly.
So it's like there's expectations and sort of guidelines. What about
20 sets of deadlifts today? I feel great.
And you feel great tomorrow too. What about when it comes to like... One thing that I'm really passionate about is whenever people, like not people like you guys, because you guys have a very good perspective on it, but I think a lot of people in general fitness like to say, I think you'll agree with me here, is like to say this exercise is the best for your chest or whatever. And I think the exercises that people are very, very guilty of doing this with is the squat and the deadlift. And for myself, can't squat, can't deadlift, and it grinds my gears a lot, because basically when people say you must squat or deadlift to get big legs, it's basically saying, hey, if you have this disability, you cannot get big legs. So to me, it's sort of like, it just grinds my gears because it's simply not true. Do you think, like, I personally think you need a variation of those, or you need something similar, but it's like you don't need a barbell squat with X whatever. Do you
the way I look at it is like a deadlift is a tool, right? Sometimes it can be a great tool, other times not so great. Like ask yourself this. Like, let me ask you this question: how long have you been lifting now?
I've been lifting
3 years. You said
three-ish. Yeah.
So out of the 3 years, has your training been static? Meaning your programming has it been static the entire time?
Has it not changed?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's definitely
Static.
changed. Yeah.
Mine either. 33 years, my training hasn't been static the entire time.
Yeah.
So, meaning, like, there's been times where the deadlift was very productive and lucrative for me, because I remember in 2009, up to 2009, I didn't deadlift. Like, that wasn't a staple.
Yeah.
And I remember that's when I met Eric and Berto and those guys. Like, hey, Jeff, why don't you start deadlifting, And I'm like, okay, let's try it. So I started deadlifting and then back squatting as well, because that wasn't a staple. And over the course of, from 2009 to 2011, I saw tremendous progress in my lower half.
Yeah.
So I attribute a lot of that to those two lifts.
Yeah.
But fast forward to 2013, 2015, 16, 17, where I've struggled with those two lifts, not like from a performance standpoint, but more so from an injury standpoint. Like, I'm getting banged up a lot. And so nowadays, like, deadlift I can still do pretty well. It doesn't bother me all that much, but the back squat has just been kind of like my Achilles heel now. So it's not a good tool for me right at the moment. Not saying I might not ever do it again, but for the time being, I don't have any plans of putting it back in.
Yeah.
So those people who are saying, hey, this is the best exercise, maybe for specific context it is.
Yeah. So
and that's what's so important, is understanding context.
Right.
Like when you see, like on social media, you see someone's post, there's usually not a lot of context around it. Or if there is, there's probably needs to be a lot more to get a full understanding. Like you can say, let's say, hey, 5-day split is the best program for this guy, maybe under these circumstances, but not for this guy under his circumstances.
Yeah.
So I don't think you should ever look at things being static. Things should always evolve.
Yeah, things are always changing, and it's very. I think I only recently realized this is everything is context dependent, and I don't think that's just bodybuilding. I think everything, like
it's life.
Yeah, it's just like it depends on so many variables for like literally everything. So it's like you can't always be like, this is the best for this reason, but it's like they might have this issue which stops that working or whatever. There's always
I always kind of like to set, like I got a question the other day. It was, hey Jeff, I think I'm losing my hair because I'm using creatine. If there's something in there that I don't know. I haven't really researched it. My first thought was maybe, I'm not well versed enough in it to really know. Yeah. But then I responded back not with an answer but with a question, because I'm thinking like, okay, that might be the cause, but maybe, hey, I asked him, hey, how's your nutrition? Are you in a deficit? Are you getting enough micronutrients? Right. So I was kind of wondering, like, maybe, he could be losing his hair because he's just, poor nutrition. Responds back, he was in a deficit. So I'm like, okay, let's fix that and then maybe stop creatine and see if, it cures your problem. But I mean, that's how people think. Like sometimes they just think like, okay, they don't really assess, like there could be more than one reason. So it's not kind of black or white. There's like always context that you should be searching for to get a full understanding of what might be a problem or not.
Do you feel like understanding context and how many variables there are makes, if someone can understand that and understand all the variables and how to tweak them, do you feel like that's what makes a good bodybuilding coach?
I think that makes a good bodybuilding coach and a good bodybuilder. Yeah.
So it's sort of, would that be, what are the qualities you think that make, sort of separate the coaches who, one, get mediocre results, but also their clients don't achieve full satisfaction? Like I think a lot of your clients, what I see is they are really satisfied and they one, get superior results, but they're also like, they're not having to give up their whole life or having to ruin every other aspect of their life to get shredded. And it's sort of like, I think that is very, very valuable. How do you think that is something that is unique to you guys, or just something that a lot of great coaches do? Or do you think, what is the thing that makes that possible?
I mean, I can't speak for other coaches, but I mean, the way we kind of look at it is we're not just thinking about, hey, I want to get this person to the bodybuilding stage as shredded as humanly possible, and hey, let's not care about the process of how we get there and the people, their relationships and all that. Like, I definitely take all that in consideration, but at the end of the day, I mean, getting to extreme levels of leanness, it takes sacrifice. So there is going to be some sacrifice involved. But yeah, I always think long-term for people, not just, hey, let me get you to the stage shredded. I think about, okay, 2 years down the road, 5 years, you know, I want this person to be able to have a good career and enjoy it, and not just like burn themselves out after one season because I just ran them into the ground. I didn't care about, you know, anything else but getting this person shredded. So I think it's just, you know, as a coach, I definitely want to put, you know, a lot of care into people. Like, they're humans. They're not a piece of meat. They're not a robot. You know, they're humans with you know, emotions, and it's important to keep that side intact, in my opinion.
And sort of understanding, like, people can't just, like, they're never going to get everything perfect. Like, literally no one can. Like, it's just never the reality. And understanding that, do you think where do you draw the line between, like, when you're coaching someone, draw the line between, hey, I'm your friend, I need to make sure I'm not being overly harsh, and drawing the line between, like, pushing them, like, hey, no, you need to work harder, you need to suck it up, or whatever?
Yeah, it's a tough decision because sometimes you have to push people, and then other times you got to kind of pull back. I think, you know, when you work with someone, it's important to develop a relationship and get a feeling as how that person operates. And you kind of got a sense, like, okay, I just need to be a little more forceful with this person, or maybe I need to have a little more empathy. It's kind of, it's hard though. It's definitely hard. And I think that's where communication is pretty huge. That's why we prefer, when we do communicate with athletes, it's through videos and, you know, Skype and audio, as opposed to just typing up a text. Like, you can type up, hey, I feel great, you know, but it reads, you feel great, but might not. Like, if you say it and express it, you know, I've had, you know, people deep into their prep go, hey, Jeff, I feel great, and their speech is really slow. You can see it all over their face. They're not as great as they're saying.
So it's
so the communication's kind of huge to get more of an understanding of where an individual is at any given point.
How do you go about sort of getting that communication to such a high level? Because, like, I think a lot of people, just in general, struggle with communication, because I think, especially as a coach, obviously I'm not a coach, so I wouldn't know, but I assume as a coach it's a very delicate thing, and you have to make sure that you're not overstepping your boundaries, but also realizing when you need to say the hard things. Do you think communication is a tool that sort of has to be mastered?
It helps, no doubt. I mean, that's if there's no good communication between coach and athlete, at least from my experience, it usually doesn't end up in you know, the greatest at the end. Like, the final product isn't the greatest. It's when we're working together, and you're on the same page, and you're open, you're honest, when things are going well, but also when things aren't going well. Like, I always stress that to all my athletes, like, hey, I want to know when things are going well. I mean, who doesn't want to hear when things go well? But I also want to know when they're not, like, or if you're not enjoying something. That was a mistake I made early on when I was first coaching. I had an athlete in particular that we were successful, like, we communicated well, but at the end of the prep, he was like 1 point away from winning a pro card in 2 different shows. A very good bodybuilder. But at the end, he told me, hey, Jeff, I hated everything about the prep. So I didn't stress to him early on, and that's the mistake I made early on as a coach, is not, hey, I want to know when you're not liking something. just because it's working doesn't mean someone's going to enjoy it.
Right. Yeah.
That's a valuable lesson I learned. And at the very end, like at the end of the prep, I thought things were great. You know,
Right.
this guy almost got and he was 20 years old. You know, I'm like, hey, this guy, he came close to a pro card 2 times and had a great season. And at the end, he just told me, hey, I hated everything about it.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't like the training I set up. He didn't like a lot of things that. And he said, not knocking you as a coach, but it's just him personally. He liked other preferences of training.
Right.
So if I would have known that earlier on, I could have changed the training. You know,
Right.
hey, let me make some changes here that is something that you can enjoy. Because there's, like I said, there's all kinds of tools you can do to progress. So I think that's always something that early on I stress to people. Hey, I want to know when things work, but I also want to know when they don't. And if they don't, I also want to know, like, so we can change it to make it better, or let me know if you don't like it. And we can try to find something else that will work that you enjoy, because when you're enjoying something, you're going to sustain it.
Yeah. Do you think is there a line between, like, okay, here's a good example for myself. I had a rant yesterday. I don't know what your opinion is on these, but I think personally, I don't like the exercise. Basically, do you know what 21s are? They're very bro. They're very like...
Yeah, they've been around forever.
Yeah. And basically, I hate them. Like, I just don't agree with the point of them. But I can't remember what I was going with that. Basically, do you think, like, people like those because they're fun, right? Yeah. But do you think there's a boundary between having fun and something being optimal or actually useful?
That's a good question. Like 21s, we're talking curls, right? We're talking biceps. So even if you did 21s, let's say it's more taxing. It's more taxing than doing a straight set, right? Would you say it's harder than doing a straight set?
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you think about it, biceps, like how taxing and how is that going to dip into your recovery all that much?
Right. Yeah.
And is it relatively safe? It's not like, you know, I guess you could get injured, but I mean, if it's something that someone's not going to really get injured on and they enjoy doing it, I'm gonna say, yeah, go ahead, throw it in there.
Right.
If it's like, hey, I want to do 21s on deadlifts, I'm like, you're off your rocker. We're not doing that. I don't care how fun it is. You're not doing it.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, it depends. Like if they enjoy doing certain things that aren't too detrimental, but if it's like they want to do something like... That
was something I learned. Like going back to that guy, like I felt like as successful as it was, I felt terrible afterwards that this guy endured, I can't remember how long the prep was, 6 months or whatever, 7 months, whatever it was, that he endured this for that long, not enjoying what you're doing.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's a good chunk of time not to enjoy something. A part of my longevity, not just, hey, my form is good, that's why I'm not getting injured, that's why I'm lasting long, but also, like I talked about, the love and the enjoyment of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So let's say new science came out, Jeff, this is the most optimal way to train.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, and let me try that. And I try it, I give it a good shot. Not saying, hey, I try it once. I ran this for a couple blocks or whatever.
Yeah.
And I absolutely hated it. Like, I didn't enjoy doing it. I'm not going to do it. I don't care how optimal it is. Because I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, no, I'm not doing it.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to do what I want to do and I enjoy. So even though, let's say, what I'm doing is less optimal than what that new science is, if I keep doing it over time, eventually I'm going to keep progressing anyways. And I might progress even further because I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Right, yeah.
And there's something to be said, too, about when you go into a training session, if they're like you're motivated and you're enjoying what you're doing, you're probably going to perform better than the person who's just like, I hate this.
Right, yeah. Just because it's like you can go in there. Like if you see how AJ Moss attacks sets, like it's like you can go in there and have that sort of mentality before a set, like I think, and actually have that enjoyment. I think a good comparison is like right now I'm doing my university degree is podiatry, which is like feet, right? But I've realized like my passion is not podiatry. I like it, but it's like I just can't. I'll be sitting in class and I'll, without even thinking, I'll bring up my training program, or I'll bring up like I'll be at work and I'll bring up like 3DMJ blog or something, and it's just like I begin to realize like, okay, this thing is fun, and my work is also podiatry, so it's like this thing is fun, and it's nice. I like it, but it's just not like I just don't enjoy it as much. So then, therefore, I just the moment I realized that, my effort went through the floor.
Down.
Yeah, just straight
Exactly.
down. And then my effort for bodybuilding went through the bloody roof. Like
Exactly. So so if you have that guy saying, "Hey, I want to do 21s," you're like, "Well, it might not be the most optimal thing to do."
Yeah.
But if he's like he gets after it, he's probably going to generate a lot more volume doing. As long as he doesn't get hurt, as long as it's something safe, then I don't see why not.
Yeah. Well, I feel like for me,
I think we're in a science-based community right now, so everything is like a lot of people, especially. I would say, I don't want to classify people, but I just think in general that we gravitate so much towards the science that, if we're not doing it like that, we're doing it quote unquote wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Right. So it's, and I think that goes back to the whole black, white versus gray thing. It's like, if you compared someone doing 21s at perfect, like they did them as best they could versus they hate like a concentration curl and they just go up and half-ass it, it's like, might as well do 21s. Yeah. I feel like...
Nah.
Yeah.
If you got someone who's in their first year of training and says, "Hey, Jeff, I want to do everything fun," and it's like 21s and it's like all this, off the rocker type stuff, like all of it.
Yeah.
No, then you're like, no. Okay, this is what we need to do because this makes more sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to get people like thinking like, hey,
just
you should be doing everything
random
fun.
Stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, if you're relatively new and you don't understand principles and all that, you don't have a good grasp on training fundamentals, then let's be a little more rigid and let's follow what's more optimal. And then over time, you'll know when you can kind of pick and pull what fun you want to have, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's, even from my perspective, like the reason that book Ego is the Enemy is so valuable for me is because I get into a lot of I think, like as you described yourself earlier on in your career, I get very set in my positions, and I'm very like, no, this is the best. This must be optimal. And I think with 21s, I had that mindset as well. And I still don't like them as an exercise, and I never will. But that's for me. It's like, it's just
that's you, which is fine. Like you don't like it, so you don't have to do it.
Yeah,
like,
it's just
okay, go do a regular curl.
It's just like the argument of fun. I hadn't even considered that. Like the argument.
Like I have a hard time getting into like social media debates and stuff in fitness. Like you probably won't find me in like Facebook and like getting into these debates and stuff. Right. Because to me, it's just like I'm like this, hitting my head because I'm like.
Yeah.
I just know, like, I've been doing this for so long, like, it's just not, it's not this or that. It's like you can do things totally different depending on context that's involved to make progress. And at the end of the day, I can tell you this, as I'm getting older and I'm at the towards the end of my career, like, I don't want to look back on it and go, oh gosh, I was trying to be so black or white, or gosh, I was trying to be so perfect or optimal that I didn't have fun at all. And I took it so serious. And I know I'm going to be singing that Frank Sinatra song, I did it my way at the end when it's all said and done.
Yeah. I don't know the song, but
look up, just go ahead and on YouTube, Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. And you listen to that song.
Sweet as. What about like, I had a really good question. What was it? Can't remember. Wait, just give me like 20 seconds. Should have written it down. Damn. I've got like paper as well here. What was it? Damn, it's just on the tip of my tongue. All good. Damn. I just have no clue what it was. Damn. It was so good as well.
You could edit this, right?
Yeah. I have no clue what it was. Damn.
That's frustrating. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, that's all good. What? Okay, I'll just leave it. What would your main piece of advice be for the the person who's relatively new to lifting, let's just use myself as an example. They're 3 years in, they want to compete at some point. X years in, they've got a decent base, but they haven't really, like, they're definitely nowhere near, like, their genetic peak or anything like that, or then they're way, way away. We're talking 20, 30 years, as you said. Like, it's a long point away. What would be your main advice for this sort of person? Do you think they should lift and enjoy it, or lift to, and their goal is basically, I know what the question was. It was, how do you grow in the fitness industry as a sort of, because I know you, like 3DMJ, the goal is not really money. Like, obviously, a side thing from a business is always money. Money is the goal in a business, but I think you guys do a great job of, it's not about the money. You guys make a very, very, you guys make a great impact in natural bodybuilding. Like, I don't think it would be nearly what it is without you guys. So thank you for that. But
no, you're welcome.
Also, like,
no, it's not. I mean, of course, you got to make money to make a living. And, but I mean, that's never been like the number one priority. Because I think if you're chasing money, I think you're not going to be doing things the right way.
Yeah.
I think so. For us, it was always about helping people first. First, it was like just promoting the sport of natural bodybuilding.
Yeah.
When we first started, it was more about, hey, let's cover these local bodybuilding shows and give the sport some exposure, in California, because it was kind of lacking at that time.
Right.
And then it kind of just grew into the coaching. But it was always about trying to better the sport or help people get better in the sport. And that kind of just is still the goal. Like, it's never changed. And I just think because of that passion and that drive and doing that, I mean, the money it's going to follow. It's just going to be kind of a byproduct of that. And I think if it's flipped around the other way around, like, you're just chasing money, I mean,
it's not going to, it's
like
if you're just training without any enjoyment, it's like, it's just never going to work. I think that's, for me, the reason why I have to pursue bodybuilding or lifting in some sort of, I have to make that my career at some point, because there's nothing else that I care about as much as this. And it's like, for me, this is one of the few things that's